Right now, as you read this, you are the only kind of human left on planet Earth. That sounds obvious. It should unsettle you. Because for almost the entire history of our kind, it was never true. You were never alone. Earth was crowded with other humans. Different species. Walking upright, lighting fires, making tools, burying their dead, living right alongside your ancestors. And then one by one, every single one of them vanished. Everyone except yours. The question is not only what happened to them. The question is why you are the last one standing. Rewind 300,000 years. If you landed on Earth back then, you would not find humanity. You would find humanities plural. Our family tree was never a straight ladder climbing neatly up to you. It was a wild, tangled bush with many branches alive at the same time. In Ice Age Europe, the Neanderthals. Across Asia, a shadowy group we call the Denisovans. On a remote island in Indonesia, tiny humans barely a meter tall. Scattered across Asia, the last of Homo erectus. And somewhere in Africa, still new, still fragile you. Homo sapiens. At least half a dozen kinds of human, all sharing a single planet. Now here is the part that breaks the cartoon in your head. The Neanderthals were not dumb, hunched brutes grunting in a cave. Their brains were bigger than yours. They crafted fine stone blades, controlled fire, wore stitched clothing, and hunted the largest, most dangerous animals of the Ice Age up close. And they cared for each other. In one cave, we found an old Neanderthal man who had survived for years, blind in one eye with a withered arm and crippling injuries. He could not have lived alone. Someone fed him. Someone protected him. They buried their dead, and on some cave walls in Europe, painted marks appear thousands of years before your species ever set foot there. Then there are the Denisovans, and they are almost a ghost. For years, this entire species was known from a single fingertip bone found in a Siberian cave. That was it. One fragment of a pinky. But the DNA inside it was unlike anything we had ever seen, and it rewrote the map. Later, a jawbone turned up high on the freezing Tibetan plateau, thousands of kilometers away. So these were not some tiny local tribe. The Denisovans ranged across half of Asia, from Siberian ice to tropical islands for hundreds of thousands of years. And we still barely have their bones. We know them mostly as a signal, hidden inside living people today. And the branches keep coming. On the island of Flores, real-life hobbits hunted dwarf elephants with brains no bigger than a chimpanzee's and still made tools and used fire. Homo erectus was the great survivor of us all. The first to truly walk like you, the first to leave Africa, a species that endured for almost 2 million years. Next to that, our own run so far is a rounding error. In a South African cave, yet another kind of human with a tiny brain may have carried its dead deep underground on purpose. These were not failed rough drafts of you. They were fellow humans. And for most of the story, they were doing just fine. And then they started to disappear. The Hobbits of Flores gone, around 50,000 years ago. Homo erectus gone. The Denisovans gone. And the Neanderthals, the strong ones, the big-brained ones, the survivors of 100,000 brutal winters, vanished roughly 40,000 years ago. Here is the detail that makes investigators lean in. They did not fade out randomly across the ages. They disappeared just a few thousand years after modern humans walked into their world. Everywhere we showed up, they soon stopped showing up. That is the kind of timing that does not look like an accident. So the obvious story writes itself. We marched in and wiped them out. Case closed. Except the evidence refuses to be that clean. There is very little sign of some grand war of extermination. No battlefields. No smoking spear. Instead, the picture is slower and stranger. The climate of that era was violently unstable, lurching in and out of savage cold within a single lifetime. The Neanderthals lived in small, scattered bands, so isolated and inbred that their DNA shows dangerously little diversity. They were in a quiet way already fragile. We may never have had to kill them at all. We just had to be a little better at one specific thing. So what was it? What did your ancestors have that a stronger, bigger-brained human did not? It was not muscle. They had more. It was not raw brain size. Their skulls held more than yours. For a long time, that was the entire puzzle. On every obvious measurement, the Neanderthal should have won this fight. Which means the answer was never going to be found inside a single body. It is not about what one human is. It is about what humans do between each other. Here it is. We could connect. Your ancestors did not live in tiny, sealed-off bands. They built networks. Seashells and volcanic glass have been found hundreds of kilometers from where they came, which means groups who never met were passing objects and ideas hand to hand across the map. When one band invented a better blade, a smarter way to find water, a story that held strangers together, that knowledge did not die when they did. It spread. It stuck. It compounded. The Neanderthals mostly stayed local, each little group solving the same problems alone, generation after generation, starting from scratch every time. We turned the entire species into one enormous shared brain. And a shared brain spread across a continent is almost impossible to kill. You can wipe out a band. You cannot wipe out a network. But now the real twist, the one almost nobody tells you. The other humans did not completely die. You are carrying them right now. If your ancestry runs outside of Africa, roughly 2% of your DNA is Neanderthal. Some people carry a slice of Denisovan on top of that. And these are not dead leftovers. A Denisovan gene is the reason people on the Tibetan plateau can breathe at altitudes that would flatten the rest of us. Neanderthal genes still shape parts of your immune system, your skin, your hair. We did not simply replace the other humans. We absorbed them. In 2022, a scientist named Svante Pääbo won the Nobel Prize for pulling this ancient DNA out of old bones and proving it beyond any doubt. They are not gone. They are looking back at you in the mirror. And let me be honest with you, the way most videos won't. Scientists still argue about the exact recipe. How much was climate, how much was competition, how much was quiet absorption as our species folded into theirs? The debate is alive and it is real. But every version of the story rhymes on one point. The last human standing was not the strongest. It was not the one with the biggest brain or the sharpest spear. It was the one whose ancestors could link up, share, and keep each other's best ideas alive long after any single group was dust. So think about what that actually makes you. You are not the winner of a fight you took by force. You are the end point of the greatest merger in the history of life, a species that survived by pulling other humans in and carrying them forward. But sit with the darker edge of it too. The exact trait that made us unstoppable, the drive to bond into bigger and bigger groups, is the same trait that lets us carve the world into us and them. The power that lets strangers cooperate is the same power that lets strangers go to war. You are the last human because your ancestors were the best on Earth at connecting. What you choose to do with that is still being decided. So sit with this. You are the sole survivor of a planet that once held many kinds of human, and you won that title not through strength, but through connection. The very thing that let us build language, cities, and this exact video reaching you right now is the same thing that left you alone at the top of the family tree. So here is my question for the comments, and be honest. If just one other human species had survived beside us, a little stronger, a little different, do you think we would truly share the world in peace? Or would we have invented an entirely new kind of racism? Tell me what you really think. And if you want to know what those lost humans could do with their bodies that would break yours in a single day, that is exactly where we are going next. Subscribe to Bygone. We do this every week, the strange story of how humans survived every age.